Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Oldish. As always, my name is Karen, and it is my pleasure to welcome you here today with us. Last week, we had a lot of really good comments in during the show, but also after the show. And a comment that was placed after the show has stayed with me. And so it has become the subject for today's Oldish. So Patricia Gillen Murphy, who is one of our viewers, said this: lonesome cocooners are getting very depressed. Hospital appointments are only by telephone, unsatisfactory, losing mobility and confidence, not properly discussed as a problem in itself. Patricia, you are absolutely right, and my thanks to you for bringing that forward because, as I said, it is the topic of today's shows. Hospitals don't discuss it, doctors don't discuss it, healthcare authorities don't discuss it, and families don't discuss it. The last part of the comment that Patricia made is what really struck with me. And what she is actually talking about, losing mobility and confidence, is called frailty. That's what we are discussing on today's show. It is a problem that has reared its ugly head far more in this day and age of the COVID pandemic, where people are self-isolating. And, you know, this business of people keeping themselves away from situations where they might contract the illness is in and of itself giving them an illness. Frailty is an illness. Don't make any mistake about it. It is an illness in and of itself. Now, I'm not suggesting put yourself at risk. That's not what I'm saying. We will look at some solutions as we go through today's show. First of all, let's define exactly what frailty is. And for that definition, I went to the Canadian Frailty Network. It defines frailty as a medical condition of reduced function and health in older individuals. And directly from the Canadian Frailty Network website, I quote this: older adults living with frailty are more susceptible to large declines in health from minor illnesses, such as the flu, or adverse events such as falls. They are more likely to be hospitalized, need long-term care, or die. The risk of becoming frail increases with age, but the two are not the same. Those living with frailty are at a higher risk for deterioration of their health and death than what is expected based on their age alone. So let's be really clear. Frailty is not a normal part of aging. Incontinence is not a normal part of aging. Dementia is not a normal part of aging. Falling is not a normal part of aging. There's a lot of stuff that we just think, oh, well, I'm getting older or they're getting older, and so that must be normal. It's not. Frailty is not normal. Just so that we have an idea of the numbers of people who are challenged with this, I looked at some resources to give me numbers and data for the US, Canada, and the UK, since that's where most of our viewers come from. Harvard, I had to write a lot of this stuff down because there's so much. It's such an immensely important topic, so bear with me while I read from what I've written. Harvard says that 45% of Americans 65 years of age and older are considered pre-frail. 45%. Huge number. 15% are frail now. So in total, that is 60% of Americans challenged with frailty. In Canada, we have 6 million people over the age of 65, and 1.5 of those suffer from frailty. I rather suspect those numbers have increased in 2020. In the UK, with 11.9 million people over 65, it's estimated that 10% of those suffer from frailty. So, folks, this is no joke. This is no joke at all. It's a very serious problem. We have discussed on this show before, probably about a year ago, hospital-acquired decline, which is frailty, but it's acquired in the hospital. So what happens is that people who maybe didn't have any frailty at all or had some, but not a lot of frailty, went into hospital and it was greatly exacerbated, or frailty became an illness that they suffered from while they were there. They're going into a strange place. They're not sleeping well. They're in a bed that they're not used to. They're not getting up and walking around because hospitals don't have budgets anymore to mount walking programs. Not the fault of the hospital staff, and I made this point when we were talking about the hospital-acquired decline. It is not the fault of the staff. The staff is heartbroken to see people deteriorating in bed. It's a funding issue. So that's a political issue. Not going to get into that here, but they're not ambulating. They're not ambulating on their own or with any help. They're not eating properly. They're not being given the diet that they're used to. They don't find the food appetizing. They just don't have an appetite, so they're not eating. They're possibly not hydrating properly, and they're not socializing because they're not in their normal environment where they see people, whether they see them going out to the grocery store or the post office, or they wave to a neighbor, or family comes to visit. Whatever the deal is, they are not socializing. So guess what? During this time of the pandemic, we are creating that environment in our own homes. I honestly know people who have not been out of their houses since March. Swear to you, they have not set foot outside their houses since March. I know some other people who have been out a handful of times, but it's such a stressful event for them that they just don't want to go. So let me address Patricia's point regarding hospital appointments being online and not in person, because that's an important point. The last thing any frail individual needs to be doing right now is sitting in the waiting room of a doctor's office surrounded by sick people, because frailty brings on illness, as we've just seen, makes them more susceptible to illnesses, and we don't want to do that. That's just a huge recipe for disaster. Now, I can tell you, as I have told you before, I sit on a hospital board. In fact, this year I'm chairing it. This is my 9th year, and I'm chairing the hospital board. And at one of our board meetings, I raised the point that one of the good things to come out of COVID is the more prolific use of telehealth resources. I had been begging for years, literally for years, for telehealth to be embraced more wholeheartedly. I live in a rural environment, as most of you know, and in this rural environment, we have people scattered, and when they lose their license, or when they're sick and they can't drive themselves to a doctor's appointment, that's problematic. Somebody has to take time off of work. Now you're impacting another person's life. It would just be so much easier if they would make use of telehealth resources. Part of the problem was up until a couple of years ago, OHIP, which is our Ontario Health Insurance Program, did not pay doctors to do telehealth visits. It had to be in person. They have changed that now, and doctors are compensated for doing telehealth visits the same way that they would if they were doing an in-person visit. So that helps. The other thing that had to happen was that dedicated rooms need to be provided for the telehealth equipment to be placed in hospitals so that those that could get there could have a private environment to consult not only with their own doctors, but with doctors who are specialists who may be at a distance. So that has happened. Also, people have been provided with iPads if they didn't have any other way to get online to communicate with doctors. They're actually sending them by courier iPads so that they can get online. And doctors are doing kind of a triage, really, with them online. And that is actually a really helpful thing. So, if anything good can be said to have come of this pandemic, it is that. So that is great. Okay, so um, people used to get out of the house once a week or so and do groceries. So when they went to do that, they were doing a bunch of stuff that was really good. They were thinking about the groceries that they needed in their house. They were planning for future, really good. When they got to the grocery store, they were walking around the grocery store. That's exercise, good. They were talking to grocery store staff, where do I find this or that? Or they were bumping into neighbors or friends that they knew and they were having conversation. So that's socializing. Good. Awesome. Lots of good stuff. When COVID hit, though, it was a very scattered response. And we weren't doing that anymore. Going to a grocery store was dangerous, stranger danger everywhere. Some people had family nearby who could help with groceries. For some, they depended on neighbors. That's good. Still others used online ordering and they went to the grocery store parking lot to pick up their groceries. I know a lot of people who work in one of the grocery stores, one of the larger grocery stores in my town, and they tell me that they've been taking orders by phone, by text, by email, any possible way that anybody can get an order in. They have been doing that. That may be a small town thing. That may not be the sort of thing that can be coped with in a larger center. So, it's not always feasible to do that sort of shopping. I have used the online app, and that's been good, but a lot of people don't use computers or they find the app confusing. Now, I'm part of a recovery group here in this community. It was intended originally for business, but it's kind of expanded a bit beyond that because we have other problems related to COVID that are definitely problems that need to be resolved before our small town can get back to anything approaching normal. And one of the problems I brought up was that people don't know how to use the app, they don't know how to order their groceries online. There is no instruction, and it's very challenging. So, with the approval of that group, I went forward and I talked to the owners of the store in this town. It's a Loblaws chain store. It's not Loblaws, but it's one of their named chains. Talk to the owners and talk to them specifically about their app. And does Loblaws have anything? Do they have an instruction manual, a video, anything that we could put on local websites or have available at the library for people to follow to order their groceries? They went and talked to Loblaw's head office, and there was nothing, but there were some bits and pieces. So it had been the intention of Loblaws, which is a huge chain for those in the States and the UK who watch our show. It's a huge grocery store chain that owns stores all across Canada under different banners. Loblaws is just one of them. Your Independent Grocers, and there are lots of them. Anyway, they, to their credit, they put all the bits and pieces together and they did it really quickly. And so we now have, I believe it's 3 files that will be uploaded to a facility we have in Canada. It's also in the States, but this won't be uploaded to the States. It's called 211, and it's an information site. You know how you can dial 611 for information? This is 211 for community information. And they have a website as well that has all kinds of files on it. So it will be uploaded there. So yay, Loblaws coming through again. A request from a little small town group resulted in a benefit to people all across this country who will now be able to access the files and perhaps learn how to do online food ordering at their local Loblaws chain store. Now, for those who still are confused by computers, you or maybe don't live in a town with a Loblaws chain store, there will need to be other efforts mounted. I know that the other grocery store in town does not have an online app, but they take phone orders. You call them and they deliver them to your home. So there's a lot of that going on as well. So that's really great. So there are ways to deal with this. There really are. Here's the good news. There are also ways to prevent frailty, and there are ways to recover from it, but it takes work. It takes a lot of work. So for all of you who are pre-frailty, don't cut out now, stay with me because you should be doing these things as well to get your body up to a level where you can prevent yourself from falling into frailty. There is a tremendous need to self-advocate, and the families will need to be supporting these people. So what do you look for if you suspect a family member has frailty or may have pre-frailty? Here's what you look for: weight loss. unintentional loss of 10 pounds or more in the past year. I could lose 10 pounds easy and nobody would notice, but no, we're talking about people who are older adults who may already be very thin, and you can see their faces get thin, and you can see that they're losing the fat pads in their arms and so forth. If they have unintentionally lost those 10 pounds, that's a problem. Checks that box. Feeling weak. They have trouble standing without assistance or have reduced grip strength. Walking slowly, because here's what happens. People who are housebound and who are feeling unwell tend to spend most of their time sitting. Not walking around is a problem. Not moving your body is a huge, huge problem. Even if it is around your house, you can develop a walking track around your house. But for people who are elderly, here's a little test you can do if you suspect. Measure out 15 feet. A 15-foot run anywhere in the house, down a hallway, is good. And have them walk that 15 feet. If it takes them more than 6 or 7 seconds to walk that 15 feet, check that box. If they feel exhausted, everything is a huge effort. Absolutely everything is a huge effort. Checks that box. Activity level is low. They used to do some more formal exercise. For instance, they might have gone out and walked 30 minutes a day, which is what we're supposed to be doing. Maybe they didn't do 30 minutes because they're elderly, have mobility aids, but at least they did something, even if it was getting out to walk around their garden every day. They're not doing that anymore. They're not doing the household chores. They're not doing the activities they used to do for fun. Checks that box. You need to call the doctor. Preventing or recovering from frailty is something that you need to consult with a doctor about, because we don't want to have them do something that will create other problems for them. So the doctor definitely needs to be involved in this effort. So what can you do? Resistance training. Again, something all of us should be doing. Now, for somebody who is weak, a can of soup, just a can of soup in each hand and lifting it, or lifting it this way. Anything like that that you can just lift, and you increase the load gradually. You might work up to jugs of detergent, whatever it is, you start slow and work up and do repetitions. So, you pick up your can of soup and you do 5 reps. The next day you do 6. You just build up, build up, build up. And maybe you change to a can of tomatoes that weighs more than a can of soup. Build up, build up, build up. And you do repetitions. So you might do it 3 or 4 times in a day, but you gradually build up that strength that you have. Sitting in a chair, you can lift your legs, same kind of thing. If you have exercise bands, that's great. If you don't go out and buy them. You've got stuff around your house. Resistance training, that's the one thing you can do. Aerobic exercise. Walk around the house, inside the house or outside the house. Get your blood moving, get your body moving and the blood circulating. Balance exercises, yoga or Tai Chi. They're great. I can't tell you how many people I recommend that to. I have a friend who I was just talking to 4 days ago, and he has fallen 4 times in the past few months. He doesn't know why. There's no apparent reason. He just falls. I was like, Tai Chi, yoga. There are lots of really good yoga and Tai Chi exercises on YouTube. Get somebody to show you how to find them and how to bookmark them. If you aren't any good at a computer, that's fine. Find something that is pre-printed, that prints those exercises out so that you can look at a piece of paper and follow along the steps. There's always a way and there's no excuse. So that is something you can be doing. If you are a member of the Oldish, we have exercises for you for free. If you aren't a member of the Oldish, create a membership. It doesn't cost anything. This stuff is all found in what we call the toolkit. And the toolkit also has other things like medication checklists and home safety programs where you're entering private information and you need a username and a password. We can't even see it. So this SAIL exercise program is part of that toolkit. These exercises were developed by Dr. Vicki Scott and her team at the Strategies and Actions for Independent Living Center. And they have very kindly allowed us to have these exercises on the oldish ever since we started from day one. So if all you can do is sit, there are exercises you can do seated. If all you can do is stand by and hang on to a counter, exercises for that. If you can move, walk around your house, there are exercises for that. They come in 3 different languages. They are there on that website. So go to the oldish. Let me show you where to find that. There it is in the crawl right down there, theoldish.com. Create yourself a membership. And by the way, while you're there, in the search bar, once you've created a membership, type in the word frailty. We have tons of articles about frailty there. And you can create your own library. That's another benefit you have to being a member. And your library is found in your toolkit as well. You can go and read those articles on frailty and any other subject that is your heart's desire. So go there and take care of exercising and moving your body. Another thing you need to do is eat well. Good nutrition is really important. The Mediterranean diet for many years in a row has been the #1 diet for proper nutrition. It has all the balance you need, a good amount of protein and vegetables and fruits. That diet, fantastic. Now, as I said earlier, food subscription boxes have been hugely popular during this pandemic. So you can choose food subscriptions that match the requirements of the Mediterranean diet, if that is your chosen thing, or order them online. That's great too. Hydration. Now, that's a really important thing that a lot of us forget about. It is estimated that 20 to 30% of older adults are dehydrated. Huge number, right? And I didn't know this until I was doing the research for this show. Muscle is 76% water. So you need that hydration when you're building those muscles back up again. Also, adults who are older may not sense thirst the way that younger adults did. Dehydration is associated with greater inflammation in the body, cells shrinking, and cell damage that result in a declining body function. So getting that water in. Now, I know a lot of people are going to, when I drink later in the day, I'm up all night peeing and I have incontinence. That's fine. Get it in the day, in the early part of the day. Get your hydration in the early part of the day. No excuse. Aside from water, herbal teas, low sodium broth, and fruit with high water content. So this is peach season. Get some peaches. That'd be great. Berries have high water content. You can get those as well. So they all contribute to getting properly hydrated. Socialization. This is something we also need because it affects our psychological well-being. So having a sense of purpose when you wake up in the day, communicating with your community, feeling that you have a community, but communicating with them. Now, I know if you're self-isolating, that's not so easy, but again, with the computers, if you can get online, if you have a phone, talk to people on the phone. Stand at your doorstep and talk to people who are out in your driveway. As long as they are at a distance from you, you will be perfectly safe. Make sure you do socialize though. And for those of you who have loved ones who you suspect are pre-frail or challenged with frailty, go knock on their door. Make sure you do it as often as you can. I know everybody's got jobs, you've got children, other responsibilities, but even taking a few minutes to stand and talk with somebody makes them feel good, makes them feel like they've got community. So this is definitely something that you can do that will prevent frailty from worsening, but you do have to take the bull by the horns. I want to mention something else that falls into the realm of frailty. And it was one of the things to look for is, feeling exhausted. Those symptoms, along with low activity level, are also things that contribute to depression. And depression is something that older adults can suffer from ever so easily. So, how do you know if somebody is depressed? Some of the signs are sort of similar: trouble sleeping, persistent, sad, anxious, or empty mood, hopelessness, guilt, or feelings of worthlessness, loss of interest in activities once enjoyed, a symptom of frailty, fatigue, decreased energy, a symptom of frailty, irritability or restlessness. Are you getting cranky? Well, if they are increasingly restless or irritable, that could be something that plays into this. Moving or talking more slowly, a symptom of frailty. Confusion or attention problems. Now, I will mention with confusion or attention problems, that can also be a symptom of dehydration. All of this stuff is so interconnected, so important to pay attention. Aches and pains without a clear cause, and of course, thoughts of suicide. Strength training also helps with depression. So again, there's an interconnectedness. So lifting that soup can helps with depression. Of course, I need to say it again. I've said it a couple times. You do need to discuss this with a doctor. A medication review can also be something that needs to be undertaken with the doctor or with the pharmacist because, you know, very often, and for those of you who access the medication checklist at theoldish.com, let me show you where that is again. You will find that over-the-counter medications are medications. So when we talk about medications, we're not just talking about prescriptions that your doctor gives you. We're talking about the stuff that you buy over the counter. So if you take an antacid, or if you take a pain reliever, or if you take, I don't know, herbal tea, or something that is something that you regard as herbal that, maybe it's not something that you would put into the category of a medication, but everything that you put into your body interacts with everything else that you put into your body. So fill out that medication checklist and take that or send that to your doctor, or take that or send that to your pharmacist, and just make sure that things are interacting the way that they should. Okay? People, this is only an insurmountable problem if it's left unattended. Ever so important. Do not ignore this. Now I see we've got some comments on the side, so let's look at it. Marcy, thank you for chiming in. Inactivity, yes, we talked about that. Absolutely. Inactivity leads to a weakened state, and it tends to be something that is one thing causes another. You feel weak, so you sit down, which causes your muscles to weaken, which causes you to think that that activity is not a good thing because you're too weak, so you sit down some more. It's a self-actualizing problem. Walking from room to room is yep. So we said that. Do a walking track around your house. But thank you very much for supporting that, Marcy, because it's true. For people who live in a place that has a central hall plan, for instance, you can walk into a dining room, around to a kitchen, around to a living room, and around to the front hall again. Creating your own walking path inside the house, if you're afraid to go outside, perfect. If you can go outside but want to stay on your own property, walk around your house. Walk around your garden and check your flowers. And, I live in a place that has winter. And as winter comes on, walking outside is not such a joy. But walking inside, still a possibility. Reading can keep, yes, Marcy, good point. Good point. Reading can keep the mind active, and also doing puzzles or games keeps the mind active. All of those types of things. Sudoku, you like doing Sudoku? Even knitting. If you're a knitter, um, that's something that you can do and pay attention to, and it keeps your mind active, it's moving your hands. So, there are things that you can do. Think about the things that you normally do in your day-to-day life, or your loved one who you suspect might be challenged with frailty or pre-frailty. Remember, pre-frailty is a thing. Do not let it decline into frailty because it's so much harder to recover. The deeper you immerse yourself in frailty, the harder it is to recover. So, like I said, only insurmountable if you leave it unattended. Thank you for being here today with us. Thank you for those of you who are watching this on our archive. I do appreciate seeing all of you here. I appreciate reading the comments. And, as the days go forward and more of you see this, then there are more and more comments, and I appreciate every single one of them. But what I would appreciate more is if you take the advice to heart and do something about it to make your life better or make better the life of someone you care about. Thank you for joining us today. I look forward to seeing you all next Wednesday at 12 noon for another edition of The Oldish. Until then, please take care of yourself, take care of everyone around you. More than ever, it takes a village. Be well, everybody.